Hey everybody, this is Kevin from Klotz Productions, and this is Game 1 of the finals between Tommy and Chris O at the Scars of Mirrodin launch party. Chris was on the draw this game and played the first spell, which was a Panic Spellbomb. Tommy still had no plays on his second turn, and then Chris played an Auriok Sunchaser. Finally, Tommy resolved a Nurok Replica on turn 3. Chris then resolved a Gold Mirror and a Sylvok Life Staff, and then he attacked with his Sunchaser for 3 damage in the air. Tommy then resolved a Glint Hawk Idol and attacked with his replica for 1. Chris resolved an Origin Spell Bomb and then attacked for 3 more in the air with his Sunchaser. Then post-combat, he resolved a Spike Shot Elder. Tommy then resolved a Golem Artisan, animating his Glint Hawk Idol, and then attacked Chris for 2 in the air. At the end of the turn, Chris used his Origin Spell Bomb to make himself a mirror and draw a card. Chris then attacked for 3 more in the air with his Sunchaser again. Then post-combat, he equipped his Life Staff to his Spike Shot Elder. He thought for a second and then resolved a Mirror Galvanizer. For Tommy's next turn, he started off by hitting Chris for 3 with his Golem Artisan. Then post-combat, he used a Volition Reins to take Chris's Sunchaser. On Chris's next turn, he started off by cracking his Panic Spellbomb to keep the Sunchaser from blocking and drawing a card. He then hit Tommy for 2 with his Mirror Galvanizer. Then post-combat, he resolved a Vidalcan Surtark and passed the turn. For Tommy's next attack, he sent his Artisan and his Sunchaser to the red zone. Chris decided to chump block the Artisan with his Mirror Token and take the other 3 damage. Then post-combat, Tommy resolved an Origin Spellbomb. At the end of Tommy's turn, Chris used his Spike Shot Elder to shoot Tommy for 2 damage. Chris didn't have any plays during his next turn, so during the end of the turn, Tommy sacrificed his Nurok Replica to bounce Chris's Elder. In response, Chris activated his Elder's ability twice to kill Tommy's Artisan before it returned back to his hand. Then Tommy sacrificed his Origin Spellbomb to make himself a Mirror Token and draw a card before taking his next turn. Tommy started off his next turn by casting a Riddlesmith. He then cast a Darksteel Juggernaut and used the Riddlesmith's ability to draw a card and discard a card. During combat, Chris used his Surtark to tap down Tommy's Sunchaser, and then Tommy passed the turn. For Chris's next turn, he simply replayed his Spike Shot Elder and then equipped his Life Staff to it again. During Tommy's next attack step, Chris used his Surtark to tap down Tommy's Juggernaut. Then Tommy animated his Glint Hawk Idol and attacked with the Idol, the Sunchaser, and his Riddlesmith. Chris used his Spike Shot Elder to kill the Glint Hawk Idol to start out with. This brought the Sunchaser down to the ground and allowed Chris to block it with his Gold Mirror. He also blocked the Riddlesmith with his Mirror Galvanizer. In the end, this killed all the creatures in combat, and then post-combat, Tommy resolved a Soliton before passing the turn. Chris started his next turn off by activating his Spike Shot Elder twice to kill Tommy's Soliton. Then he simply passed the turn. Tommy hit Chris for 2 damage with his Juggernaut, and then post-combat, he resolved a Heavy Arbalest. For Chris's next turn, he started off by playing a Trigon of Infestation, and then resolved a Heavy Arbalest of his own. Tommy then attacked with his Juggernaut again, which was now a 3/3, then post-combat, he played a Vidalcan Surtark. At the end of Tommy's turn, Chris used his Surtark to tap Tommy's Mirror Token, and then Tommy played a Bonds of Quicksilver on the Surtark to keep it from untapping. Chris started off his next turn by activating his Spike Shot Elder twice to kill Tommy's Surtark and his token. He then attacked Tommy with his Spike Shot Elder for another 2 damage. For Tommy's next turn, he simply equipped his Heavy Arbalest to his Juggernaut, and then used it to do 2 damage to Chris's Spike Shot Elder and killed it. Then at the end of the turn, Chris activated his Trigon of Infestation to make himself a token. Chris then attached his equipment to his token and was able to kill the Juggernaut even though it was indestructible because of the infect damage. He then resolved a Trinket Mage but had no more artifacts in his library to search for. He then attached his Life Staff to the Trinket Mage before passing the turn. For Tommy's next turn, he simply laid down a land and passed it back to Chris. Chris then attacked for 3 with his Trinket Mage, and then post-combat, he resolved Agama's Warden. Tommy then looked at the next card at the top of his library and then scooped, giving Chris the win and taking them to Game 2.